Good morning. Thank you for coming. I know we had it down for, but you all made it here anyway, and that's great. I am Michael Chevy Castronova, and I got to turn this down a little bit because I can hear it really loud. Okay. I'm the Business and Iowa Ideas Magazine editor at the Gazette. And I want to thank you for joining us this morning here at Geometric. This is our third Gazette Business Breakfast for the year. Today we're here to talk about all things workforce, whatever that entails. How to maintain and build a sustainable, good workplace culture. Now, this is a tagline, something we call somebody to hire them, something that actually works and you can sustain throughout the entire process. How to retain, if you're getting great employees, I'm going to get this eventually. The problem being left-handed in the right-handed world. But before we get too far along, I want to thank our community sponsor, NewBoco, the New Bohemian Innovation Collaborative, for allowing us to use this nifty space, which is really cool, and for all the programs that they do with us and with the Gazette. And among the things they do, of course, right here is the 1 million cups, right? I know many of you have been to those. So here to say a few words about that happens to be one of our panelists, Aaron Horn. Aaron, you want to just give us an executive summary of NewBoco and stuff?
Yeah, sure. So, how many of you, this is your first time in this building? All right, awesome. Well, welcome. Obviously, we have a lot of stuff going on in this building. The top floor is Geometric. The second floor is Vault Co-working, which is one of the things that NewBoco manages. Converge is also up there. Down here, we have Delta V Code School, another program from NewBoco, as well as Iowa Big. We have a makerspace. There's also a bunch of entrepreneurs, both upstairs and downstairs, working on really cool things. And so, lots going on in this building, lots of energy, which is really awesome. NewBoco, we focus on kind of three main areas: entrepreneurship support, corporate innovation, and tech education. So, from entrepreneurship, we do things like the Accelerator, Corridor Angel Investors, 1 million cups, things like that. From tech education standpoint, we kind of have the long game and the short game. The long game is we're the Code.org partner for the state of Iowa, so we want computer science in every single school across Iowa, and so we focus on that. We teach teachers how to teach computer science, and then the short game is we actually teach adult career changers how to be software developers in a 20-week boot camp called Delta V Code School. And then on the corporate innovation side, we have things like Entrepreneur Academy and Agile coaching and things like that. So those are kind of the three main areas, and we have somewhere around 30 different programs that we run that kind of fall under those areas. So thank you very much for being here. If you want to hear more about what we're doing, we also have an annual meeting next Thursday, the 19th. It's over lunch, and we're going to have a bunch of big announcements about kind of the vision of where NewBoco is going 5 years into the future. So we'd love to see you there.
Very good. Thanks, Aaron. I mentioned at the top that I'm also the editor of Iowa Ideas Magazine. I believe there are copies here. If you have not read these, please take a look at them. This magazine comes out 5 times a year. It's what we call long-form journalism. It's long looks at important things, important here. It is part of an initiative. We're now into our 3rd year. Zach Clture, the executive editor here. 3rd year, yes, Zach? 3rd year. And it culminates in a big conference, a day-and-a-half conference downtown, most of it at Doubletree. It'll be Thursday, Friday, October 3rd and 4th. Last year we had 550 attendees. We're really close to that number already this year. So think about coming. It's about 40 panels, 200 and something different speakers and panelists talking about solutions and issues and things that are important to the state today and things we should be thinking about in the future. There are tracks on healthcare, manufacturing, inclusion, diversity, education. If it's important, we're going to try and talk about it. 2 keynote speakers, Tom Vilsack, you know who that is, right? And also one of our keynote speakers will be actually Jason Soleil and Andre Wright. They were the founders of Humanize My Hoodie movement, which you're familiar with, right? The shirt that I'm wearing a hoodie doesn't mean you should shoot me kind of thing. And don't decide who I am by the clothing. This August edition of Iowa Ideas Magazine will have a preview of the event, so if you're still on the fence, take a look at this one. We have some stuff in there. that will help you hopefully decide. You can get your tickets, and I advise you to do that now-ish, at iowideas.com. One more thing, and then I'm done with housekeeping. Every year we also have the annual business awards, the Gazette Business Award, once a year. It's always at Kirkwood, a good time is had by all. My co-MC again this year will be Elizabeth Von Presley, my rock and roll pal, and you know she's great. She hasn't sung yet, but it's gotten close. We will have, I don't know, a few hundred of our closest friends will be there. Think about some awards. We're going to have a panel. We're going to have a panel this year to talk about big ideas. On that panel, we'll just talk about really big ideas will be Ron Corbett, you know who that is too, right? Ron Corbett, Lori Sundberg of Kirkwood Community College, and Kevin Munson, the architectural firm who's built a few big things in his time, so I suspect he'll have ideas about big things. So here we are today, this morning. We're going to talk about workplace culture. We're going to look at it from a variety of angles. That's why we have a variety of panelists here today. Different approaches, what's worked, what hasn't worked, and hopefully we'll come with some ideas. I mentioned at our last panel in June that I had interviewed for a job a few years ago before I came here in Indianapolis. And among the lures for their attraction, why they wanted people to come there, they said, well, we do peer reviews of all our writing. Now this is not too many years, maybe 10, 19 years ago. Most of the other people there were in their 20s. I thought, well, okay, you're going to review my writing. Sure, I can take that. But if you won for that quarter you got a prize, you could go to a dude ranch. Okay, you need to keep your plan with the people you're trying to recruit, right? I'm not going to do dude ranch. But you need more than a cookie cutter, right? Not everybody's good fit or so we're going to talk about that sort of stuff. One person I know who has given a lot of thought to workplace culture happens to be the CEO of Foliance. Foliance is the parent company of the Gazette. And Daniel Goldstein, who has taken some time out of his otherwise schedule, I kind of coerced him to be here this morning, is going to talk for just a couple of minutes about that. I understand you have some show and tell. And you're going to hold those up, Stacey? Okay. You need my time? Okay, you're on.
Okay, good morning. And I do want to introduce Kathy Tarakina, who is Executive Vice President, Board Member of Foliance. She is my partner in all this, so I'm not taking credit. And of course, it's all thanks to the team, Zach, and all other Foliance employees. So since we are, I have very few minutes. We're going to cover history, framework, Foliance's approach, and the results. And since we're in a really high-tech place, I've got PowerPoints. First PowerPoint, please, Stacey. Okay, history. Our company started in 1884. We have employees who have worked for the company for over 40 years, several over 30 years, many over 20 years, some of whom are in this room. In 2017, after 133 years, we changed our company, and in that same year, we added another 180 employees from another company with 32 years of history. That's a lot of history. Now, some roots are really good because they anchor you. Some roots can cause damage as they break through concrete and cement. With all that history, we needed to preserve our strength, but also change our workforce culture. So, next slide, please. Framework. There are two important drivers of culture, leaders and organization. And the primary between those two is leaders. What do they say, but more, what do they do? There's the reactive, how do leaders respond to events and to feedback. There's the proactive, what is the path that they're forging? After all, leaders are called leaders because they're supposed to lead. Secondary is the organization, and there it's designing structure, systems, policies, procedures, the rituals, stories, the tone of the organization. And what's really important is that there has to be coherence between the organization and the leader's behavior. Because when there's distance between the two, that doesn't work. So the theme throughout my very brief comments is consistency, and I'll define that as coherent, patient, unrelenting continuation. Coherent, patient, unrelenting continuation. That is what we boil down to our secret sauce, consistency. So where do you start to change culture, of course you start with the leaders, and of course you start with the CEO. I need to develop so that I can help my people develop. They need to develop so they can help their people develop, and so on. You need to clearly define what are the non-negotiable, and that is important. They are non-negotiable behaviors and attributes. Some of ours are distributed leadership, so nobody acts unilaterally. That's not ruled by committee, but it's inclusion by the people that have a stake in the decisions. Accountability, and that's in all directions. I ask Zach to hold me accountable, and I'm going to hold Zach accountable. It's important that that's up, down, and across peers. Respect and civility, we do a lot of work on this. We want to have a safe place for all employees to engage to their utmost. Participation, it's also, nobody gets to sit by the sidelines. You are not only encouraged, but you are required to participate, and that's to work towards solutions. So we're very solution-centered. Leaders must model the behaviors that they expect from others. So, you also need to change your organization for that coherence. Update your organizational design, span of control, your handbooks and policies. We now do pulse surveys to measure all this because you need to measure how is that going. Again, you have to work towards that coherence between the organization and the leaders. And that's not enough. Let's go to the next slide. Give a real insist, what is Paul Nance doing about this? You need to develop all your people managers and emerging leaders. Now, a couple points there. There are no quick fixes. Remember, patience and consistency. Another really important thing is this is not HR's responsibility. HR is a great partner in carrying out the plan. But workforce culture is really too important to leave to the people that are so busy making sure that our people are being taken care of. It has to come from the leaders from the top. You need to have those clear expectations, like those non-negotiables, and it's not an option, especially for anyone who has a title or supervisory authority. But you need to have patience, because a lot of people have never had that development, and so it's asking a lot for them to step into this. Consistency over time to build trust. So some of what's in our Foliance Leadership Development Program, we work on active listening, because the most important thing, people want to be heard. We work with different leadership styles because we all have different styles, whether we're quiet, more active, immediate to come to decisions, more open, taking time to consider all alternatives, giving constructive feedback, asking open-ended questions, confronting bias, confronting preference, having crucial conversations with radical candor, and building trust. But what's important, consistency, keep hearing that word, it can't be one and done. So it's not enough just to have a development session, and please don't call it training. Training is for dogs, development is for people. So what do? Once people go through the development program, we have something called application groups. And those are cross-functional groups that meet once a month to continue sharing ideas, discussing real challenges they have in the workplace, practicing discussions in a safe place, and developing their own peer network in the organization to break down silos. But leave no employee behind. Every employee needs to be included in this. And so we work a lot on the rights and responsibilities that come from, in our case, we are employee-owned, the employee ownership, pull this out of my pocket. And so every one of our employees has what's called a license to act. And it's not about the card, it's about the message. You know that if you see something, say something. If you take that a little further, if you see something, say something, and do something. So it's not a license to complain, it's a license to act. You have an idea, come up to me, pull me aside and say, I've got an idea, and I will listen to you. The same for all of our managers. Okay, next slide, please. So what you really want to know is, does this stuff work? Well, some had decisions to make, and some had decisions to make. Not everyone can navigate the transitional change culture. But remember, there are non-negotiables. And so sometimes that's a good thing. Others are really lost in this transformation, and some really amazing, surprising stories. People that just sort of came out of the woodwork and done incredible things in our organization. And that's really just so nice to see. Workforce culture work is still ongoing, and it's always going. It never finishes. So in 2018, we added another 130 employees and 18 years of history, more history added to the next. And what was really great is that integration went so well because of our work we've done on our workforce culture and bringing into that culture of maintaining what was successful in their culture. And the words of their executives, hey, this stuff actually works. That's pretty good. But what's really good is that all surveys have really supported us, and they've shown this does work. So my 5 minutes on our slide. I don't listen. You take away one word is consistency. That's what's going to go here to really build over effective workforce. So thank you. I will be here and I will talk to you first. And I'll talk to you.
Thank you. All right, so now, as you know, really broad range of expertise here. But I'd like to start off, so we know who's who. I'd like each of our panelists to introduce themselves, tell us where you work, and a little bit about what you do there. Stacy, so I can let you start. Go ahead.
Sure. My name is Sato, and born and raised here after, so like you said, and I have been in a variety of leadership roles for the past 20 years of my career. Large organizations such as Pearson and Transamerica, and Southwest Solutions that we apply to society leader. And for the last year, I have been consulting for a variety of organizations in our community. And yeah. That's good.
I'm Aaron Horn, the Chief Operating Officer for Co. Sometimes I say the Chief Helper. So anybody that something I'd call the CFO before I'm not called HR, but can fill in the roles that actually is the title. So this is my first IT job. I've worked with head of IT across different industries and manufacturing, trade, software, actually I'm from Central Iowa, so I took some years in Ames before moving out here. And so yeah, go state. No, so we will go obviously we work as agile, so there's Eric Engelberg, the executive director, and there's everyone else. Above him there's the board. And so Chief Operating Officer, obviously just helping everybody as can to break those teams that I talked about earlier with corporate innovation, tech education, and entrepreneurship. So day-to-day I also help a lot with the tech education team.
Hello, I'm Staker, I'm the Director of Community Relations. I'm always hesitant to explain what that means, because basically I'm giving away money, and so don't I'm not very good, so I was in 1992 corridor, so one of my partners is those stores are funneling information to them, but we do not decide the money that might be. So it's a very fun job, and I'm alive, so lots of job is actually HR, and how to let people, and when I see somebody I as a helpful smile, I try to their kids are company.
I'm Angela Weekly, changes in Simpson. I work at my title is Community Engagement Manager, which means what? Exactly. So I do all of our community outreach and the diversity inclusion within our organization. As a result, a lot of times people who do like DEI or diversity and inclusion fall under HR. I purposely am not part of HR because we want to make sure that inclusion was the house of culture and not just silos in one area.
Morning, I'm Eric here, cigarette. I own a search consulting, not trained out with a development firm called Top Brain.
See, we were listening.
Listen. So we are focused on developing, hiring and developing professionals and helping out retention of companies through cultural training. I started my company for very undergraduate reasons that was an academic growing up community. I don't see a lot of people like me in leadership position. In fact, my background, they like just be honest. That's my goal. I decided to retire. That I need to help my kid. I know that conversation diversity and inclusion. And I've been to some organization that's what I took my decision. That's why I'm here.
Great, thank you. Okay, well, Mark, up to your question. No, that's why you came. But as addition, you're going to start the question from reporter, something. Yes.
So my understanding of this, Clture is just saying to get somebody higher than so I want to get your impression on how you find that term, and also the it's beyond just amenities, so office size.
Who wants to go first?
So I think any good organization's culture is defined by its mission, and our mission is to partner with our members for successful financial futures. So everything that we do culturally fit into that. So we do a lot of things where we partner with our employees to make decisions about how we partner with our members. We partner with our members to inform decisions that we help them. So I would say it's a key thing to Meridian cultural association, and that everybody is a leader and everybody is a follower from the CEO to our front line, which is we call them TSRs, or Total Service Representatives. They actually are based in the most important at Meridian. And so making sure that they understand how important they are in their role in that partnership is as I believe what the culture is, which then makes us feel very much like a family, because even though Dad might think he's in charge of what Mom is, and Mom might really think that a really good 2-year-old is, right? So that's why Meridian, to me, feels like family.
I'll just follow. Our mission is accelerating world-changing ideas from Iowa. And so we have lots of discussions. I mean, as a nonprofit, are these things fulfilling our mission? Are we trying, we're essentially ecosystem building, and so does this fall within what we're trying to do, not just here in Cedar Rapids and in the corridor, but all across Iowa. And we do have foosball tables and ping pong tables, and I rarely see them used. That would not be a core piece of our culture. Although we do have Whiskey Friday, and it is what it sounds like. That is a pretty cool thing. Plan shirts on Fridays. We're pretty casual all the time. That's probably another piece. We're probably known for that. But so, for us, I think a big piece of the culture is just flexibility. Everybody talks about work-life balance. It is very normal to see kids running up and down vaults, and it's one of the those kids. So that's very common for us to just kind of integrate work and life all the time. And then just, not micromanaging people. So again, we're a very flat organization. We have an executive director and everybody else, and so there's no room for micromanaging or anything like that. So there's just a lot of ownership, and that's a big piece of ours as well.
The thing that I would add is the values of your organization in addition to your mission. And I think we've all seen organizations that have their mission or their values on the wall, but it's how and why those values are felt and seen. And I think Daniel already mentioned it, it's that consistency with what's on paper or on that wall that's actually the most important aspect of that. So, not to oversimplify it, because but it's the character, the personality of the organization. It's what it feels. Do you feel those values in action? Do you feel that mission in action? Is what I would say.
I'll add just a little bit to this about atmosphere and autonomy. So I believe at IB, we really try to first place a position or a person into a position that is their best fit. So I think one of the coolest things about our company is that we have so many opportunities. So if you want to decorate cakes, or if You love flowers. We have so many opportunities in those regards. So key to retention is finding the best fit for that individual. And from there, and then developing them into being their best self. And then they get time to grow. So we have a sign maker who also loves Paw Patrol. So she says, we want to throw a Paw Patrol event. Absolutely, go ahead. So I think that is as cool as saying, we cannot change like if grapes are 99 cents a pound, this is good that we can't change it. But we can change a lot of things that best fits as an employee or if we have ideas. Certainly, I think our management does an incredible job listening, taking those ideas and implementing them, but they can't.
I won't piggyback too much, but basically, I like to say water conversation, nothing you can tell. The cultural company, I was all coming out, those are all great things. But really, first time conversation, relationships, I think that the companies that I know that have done well, companies that I work for, felt good, engaged, these companies have good relationships with people. Where the CEO had a good relationship with personnel, and I really like those approaches in that flat. I think that's important. Someone told me once, a long time ago, that to maintain that culture of leadership, remember that the C-suite always runs the A-suite. What does that mean? You surround yourselves with smart, intelligent people. Get to know those people as individuals, and not just because masses or their IQ scores, but get to know them as humans. You can find get a lot more out. So I think culture is really good.
All right. Questions? So before we start, Quinn has Mike up. She's raising her hand to you. No problem. I know that's outside. I'm throwing you. All I ask you is please tell us your name, where you work, your general history, and if your question is for the whole panel or an individual panel or someone. Questions? I was going to ask somebody who doesn't work in the same. Sure.
Okay, so probably everyone who's here believes in workforce culture, and there are lots of people that don't. So how does workforce culture tie to profitability? Some examples, stories, how have you convinced people that it's not just about feeling good or having kumbaya moments, being around the water cooler? Hard facts, how does this tie to profitability to your businesses?
I would answer that question. Does it tie to profitability? Actually, never that.
So I'm a storyteller, so I'm going to tell a story, and then I'm going to give you some numbers that might not be the exact numbers, but kind of. So I have a former employee who started working at Viridian as a TSR and was going to school to be a teacher, and she was like, all I'm ever going to be is a TSR because that's the only thing I want to do here, and then I'm going to leave. That was 10 years ago. She has moved up in the organization and now is a branch manager. In between there, she has done anything from loans to working in the community inclusion department to like, I can't see myself being anywhere else but here. So I would say culture can be defined or be equated to retention. Especially when I'm talking to you about a millennial who, statistics say millennials don't stay anywhere longer than 5 years. If you can get them to stay longer than 2, you're doing good. So I think 9 to 10 years is great. We have, our drop-off is actually after 7 years, so I don't know what that is, so we're just looking at that. But we have employees who have stayed in their career for 40 years. We have just had someone retire that had been here for 41 years. So there's that, and then there's employees who lead to do like that career. Like I wanted to be a teacher. I worked at Viridian for 5 years in college. I was supposed to be 4 years. I anyway. I left for 12 years and then went to work in education and then right back to Viridian with the opportunity to use those skills that I learned through development of those first 5 years and then the practice of education to come back. So our retention numbers are in the 90s, between 80s and 90s, and that's not really heard of in many companies. Retention isn't that high, and that's not good enough for us. So that is another thing that was done in our culture, is we're pretty competitive, and so we're always looking at how do we keep those numbers, how do we get those numbers higher.
I like telling stories too, so I'll tell a story where I'm maybe some arguments, but a really good friend of mine worked at a company called Omega Gas Management. And I love telling that story, two stories I love to tell, but it was a story of a repetitive work or repetitive operation that needed to be done in a company, and nobody ever would do it. This HR manager discovered that worked with an organization called Clture, and they work with people with disabilities. Inclusion, yes, they work with people with disabilities. And there was a gentleman that had a job, he was autistic, but he was really good at work. This was one of the tasks this company couldn't get anybody to do well. They had a storage room, cost them about $100 to fix the storage room. They fixed the storage room because it was unused. They created a space for this repetitive work to be done on this woodwork. And they worked with this company that hired this disabled gentleman. They also got tax credit as well. There's money involved, so they got tax credit, cement. This person became one of the best inserts of this little car process that they ever had. He hardly missed days at work. And the one thing that he did is he improved retention at the company because so many people feel good about coming to work. There was an attitude change in the team, and they began to feel good about what they were doing. I personally must have said this individual that I've read the stories about, and I use it in a lot of presentations. And so that's an example of changing culture, changing attention, changing attendance, people at work, that's my other story is, leave back the next up. So you can Google this stuff, that's the study where we were going in 2015, they wanted to return their own organization. What an increase in the number of females and minorities within a particular department. How did that change the financial outlook of the departments? So they did some numbers within their own company, and they found out that departments within their company that were about 60-40, male, female, consistently outperformed other departments within the same company that were not diverse. So culture, diversity, money. For CEOs to spend it out to, there are plenty of examples of that. It's not a short-term fix. So that's culture takes a long time. I imagine that that's probably the wrong process. And change takes a lot.
I would agree, our culture has definitely impacts our possibility. Does anybody know Jimmy and Heidi wasn't Irish shoppers? Jimmy is incredible. Like you can't even get into the store without doing hi ma'am. Like every time she's this smile, like he is the most joyous I've ever met. And we probably see we have customer complaints like all the time, customer compliments. Just as much as we certainly do not talk about them enough. We try to our best to tell that story, but Jimmy is like the things that makes him up. He's incredible. He smiles all the time. This shop was never happening not because it's convenient. They shop because of Jimmy. And that is what has made upon is our smile, our helpful attitude, and our policy. If the customer says, you know, I'm not going to do long, and you don't know where it is, where I got business, take customers to too long. Like you don't just tell them where to go, you help them all the way from their questions until their bag. And so we absolutely, the money in the end is a direct result of the smile attitude.
So, being in HR my whole career, this has been a constant discussion and trying to, it's not blocked, right? So a lot of times I've seen this shift and think like people are starting to pay attention to what this culture is all about. I'm in this panel, I'm very excited about it. But it is a business strategy. It is not love. And the reason for that is when your employees are engaged and they're empowered and they're happy, there is a direct correlation, a lot of research out there, that the customers are engaged and happy and come back. And that directly correlates to results and profits. So one particular example is I went from an organization that did not have good engagement scores with their employees. It was about 10 or 12 years ago, actually, at this point. And there was this concerted effort to look at the culture and say, are we living what we say we believe? And that was a painful look in the mirror. And it's like, we say that we respect each other, but, you know, we all have to become, I wasn't there at the time, but it looked around at the story is, you know, they knew, there's all that underlying stuff. It's the stuff at the water cooler that everybody knows Joe hates Bob, and there are two managers, and the team don't get along. We've all seen that, right? Well, and then there was this real hard look of, we gotta live what we say we believe. And an absolute shift, and you know, many people jumped ship because they got really uncomfortable. Well, years later, you could see data showing engagement results and the percentage increase. Absolutely at the same pace the stock price did. And that was the only organization's evidence of we're doing something right here. And so that's powerful, and I think, again, when it comes down to why are we doing this, right? Most of us are for-profit business, and we're here to execute what we say we do really well. And so that's the customer's client who takes care of those people. It's your employees. And it's, that's why they say it's your organization, because your culture. So it does correlate as an equation as a business strategy that everybody ever pays attention to.
I think it's cool, there's a bunch of numbers that I also say, let's look at some stats that, you know, if people are happy to do their work, they're going to do good work. So yeah, it's great that we can prove that that's true. But you know, some of the best people have the big ones that love their job, the product that they're selling, the customers can tell that, the customers are happy with that. So yeah, we can beat it to death with numbers and facts and figures and all that stuff. But I think also just realizing, and I think people want a good culture. I don't know any CEO here about culture. You know, just numbers. I mean, I guess the nice thing might exist, but you know, that's the problem. I think they want to have culture, and maybe they just don't know what do we need to do to fix it. Like I said, maybe not hard enough to just know that you have a really culture, and then tackle fixing it. Which is where we kind of divide that out and say, you know, hey, what can you and your team work to help improve these things, especially as managers and all together, make sure that concerted effort for improvement. But again, I think it would be weird if you cared about something else. I don't really care about that. I think we're fine.
Okay, question. Oh, you're not going to comment that on there.
Actually, you actually want to we've talked about signs that positive as well, which we kind of touched upon that a little. What are the aesthetics that companies that work for culture and pleasure like to go back and forth that there are visible areas that can be improved?
People quitting.
Well, and I also think that no matter what your numbers are indicating, if you don't think there's improvement, you're going to down. So you should always be looking at numbers and results of your employee engagement, employee. I mean, change it to because that's what you call employee what? Employee satisfaction surveys or whatever. Engagement are asking the right questions to figure that out. And then, like I said, our engagement last year, I think it dropped to 86% from 92%. And some companies like 86%. We think it sucks. So even though we're doing well with engagement, we are still trying to dig into those numbers to figure out, and that's why we're out that as we were dropping after 7 years. What is that looking like? So you're looking and you're digging into that data, and then you're not just looking at the data, but you're asking something 5 to 7 years. You're asking people who stay longer than 7 years. What is it? You're asking those questions, using all that data to make decisions.
And I think larger companies can match bad culture, and I think that's, in my position, I've seen that a lot. But you can always determine culture by having conversations. And in a community like this, particularly smaller communities, rumors spread, conversations spread. We've got technology, last door. There are so many ways that it can become trash in terms of their reputation, because of their culture, by people that code bottom. So I think that's why you pay attention to every single employee in your organization, because you don't know what employees are saying behind your back when they're not in the building. So I know companies, I've noticed the culture just by having a conversation with some individuals in my role, and some of the conversations I've had recently, you can tell people leave is not because of money all the time, because of the culture. So when I'm talking to candidates and finding out about their backgrounds, and learning what they like, about where they work at, and listen to the conversation, learn about those cultures.
Just wanted to say that the local employees usually the chief, because they listen to the team, so just want to
And I would say, to your question of what evidence that you have to look at Clture, a consistent thing that I see is fear. Have you seen, or is there evidence of people who are afraid of either speaking up, or being candid with a leader, or coming up with an idea, and why are they afraid? That's a really strong evidence that you've got some work to do. And I love the comments that the panelists made, and don't forget, this is your brand. And how, over the years in business, how important and how much companies invest in brand, right? Their marketing teams, their logos, their advertising. This is part of our brand. And so that's another reason why I got to look at it and make sure that they can make the resources and investments into this brand.
In the core of our Clture, maintains stores for approximately 5,000 employees. So to help everybody know and to make sure that our stores are maintained at the level of the 100%, Smile Smile Way today to every customers that we know. Unfortunately, we have to check numbers. And they might write one big and come in, and then that's happening daily, and you never know what it is. But talk about knowing right away there's an issue, we meet right away. And then to reward that and to help our employees achieve that 100%, they get to earn jeans, like one store, so they get 100% on survey. The entire store or 400 employees to earn jeans, that's every year on next Friday. So if you walk into a store and see jeans, you know now that they're probably wearing those as a word of what just fit. And then likewise, if you have a customer survey come back at 82% in the smile section, we have a problem, that we need to address quickly. And so it's not just about getting that 76 or that 89, going on the 100, it's why is that happening? So then the HR manager, the management of that store, and the store director break that down. So those customer surveys are very helpful for us because we want that 100%, and then of course we want to keep that 100% companies as well.
I just wanted to also say that, I'm sorry, because diversity inclusion is what I live and do. I was like, we used to have, we called them mystery shoppers, and they would go to branches. And I think those are great in the time, in the moment feedback, but you want to make sure that those surveys are culturally relevant. Because we had employees who may not look like the rest of the community, who would say, yep, they said my name, because that's one of the things we asked. Yep, they did my transaction quickly and accurately. And then they would give them like a 4 instead of a 9, because they just culturally didn't feel comfortable, or they didn't smile enough, or they didn't do something enough, or they did all of the things that their job requires them to do. So you want to make sure if you're using a tool like that, it is culturally relevant, so you're not hurting an employee who's doing their job well, because then that employee ended up leaving because he had to keep getting talked to, and this is employee from this area, he had to keep getting talked to about, could you smile at the members? Could you do, and it's not that he wasn't supposed to culture, and that wasn't part of who he was. He's conducting business, and business is serious in his culture, so.
someone who does work for.
Yes, who you are, where you are.
Hi, I'm Samantha Harper. I work in communications as their communication connection specialist. One of the things that you guys can sort of touched on is you've got these numbers, we're at 86%, those are good numbers, but you have a desire to get to great. A lot of what I'm seeing is there's a lot of good out there. What steps have you taken to get to great? It's fantastic to have that desire. You want that 100, you want that, perfect satisfaction for that perfect meetings. Or what have you guys done in order to take yourselves from good to great? What programs, policies you put in place, inclusion initiatives you've done in order to actually get there past just this desire of wanting to get there?
So I have been in that position where we're getting into a transition where the percentage was high 80s and we weren't satisfied. That was 12 to 14% of the government education. Your goal, and it's almost due to the concept of having a safety goal or a mission, isn't it? It's like, oh, okay with 10, you can get hurt. No, you're not. 1 person uses the just doesn't understand why. And so what the approach was, and you learn a lot because you're going to make mistakes, but was really sitting down and talking to people and saying, hey, why do you think that we're not quite 100%? What are we not doing well? What do you want? What would make your job easier? And some of the things that I learned was work-life, things that you're all already hearing, right? Flexibility, work-life balance, and that trumps money all the time, right? And so I was a part of an initiative that removed all paid time off, and you take what you need, and you're an accountable employee, you know how to make sure your job gets done and do that. And then that improves the value of going back to something like people on the wall saying they trust you. So, but then we have all these policies that say what you can't do, right? We have another example of how do you go from really looking at tradition, how you always done some things, to really live and if you really trust people, why are you letting them into their life? And getting the job done. So that was the message, and that increased. Same with parental leave. Another thing, really just think differently. Really think about things that we've done. So for example, we really were passionate about family. Yet women had 12 weeks of paid off. The fathers didn't. And you really start thinking about that one, that line say. So we gave the father the same amount. Now all of that costs money, and I'm not going to remind you. This is your brand, this is strategy. You have leaders, CEOs like Daniel, who understand this is a return on investment. But those are some of the things that really push yourself to do. Are you living what you say? And think differently. And I know we have attention. You do it because you want people to stay. You want top customers to be happy. But you also start recruiting and the stories in the community that are really powerful recruiting and retention. People start talking about, I feel like my strength and pride with that was that. So I'm not for that.
Yeah, I would say something to do even more about active listening right? So we try to implement that, and one of the things that made several changes to our training was having really open, honest, all hands around this big room talking about what we were doing better, things that kind of came out of it. Of course, the posted notes, agile. So we just had a full suggestions and ideas and discussion around that. And there were some things that we could do that, was maybe break the bank, but our sales areas that were concerning. So just taking the time to listen to that, as much as I threw off the numbers, we do a employee survey every single year, and I do chart the numbers and see where the ones that are doing over time. Again, because we have retention as well, so we know the same people every year. And so as we see some of those things go down, it's kind of we need to be asked questions about that. So, hey, remember about this company functions and professional development. What does that mean? Let's talk to employees and ask what more professional development offer you. What are your thoughts on that? What's the more? The whole act is actually ask them, and then ask if you're not yet ready to implement some changes.
There are just a couple of programs out there about how he does. But I think a fantastic it's awesome, and really love things, right? Because so often they're bombarded with this customer, this machine, really breaks that. It's so awesome to hear positive examples, and then let those give them the proper credit that they deserve for making a difference because they are on the front line. Another thing, and I can't tell you this, every store implements their own sauce, and that's the awesome thing about ideas and time, right? One for example, when they get a great customer comment in the mail, they forward it to us, or I too, and then HR manager, that their manager within their department handwrites a note, puts a dollar, puts whatever, puts like into the card, and mails it to their home. So they don't just write them in there, they don't hand them a card, that's the easy way, right? We pay for postage, yes, right? But we believe that the return on that investment is critical to our retention. So that's one program I like, and another one is notes. Some HR managers have a wall outside their door, and put post-it notes up just congratulating different employees. And Casey and I are in several markets around the market, so we get to witness all the cool things. An area that we can is share retention tools with each other because they're powerful. They're powerful. It is on to write those early calls for the email, release them, make the job day, makes a big impact.
So I'm just going to tell a little story. So I can say those same things, but I'm just going to tell a story about how leadership development is important from TSR all the way to CEO. And I think that actually answers one of the things that we do. So we used to have leadership coaches. They were the same leadership coaches that we had when I was in college, and the same two women who did the same two things I did. That was excited about sophomore in college to when I came back to the company years later. I was like, I have this with them. So they're using them. And they were great. I don't want to say that. But at the same time, it's like, we've always done it this way. Does this still work with the same group of people? So how do we change it up? And so we asked our employees, like, how does this look different? What kind of leadership development are you looking for? What kind of leadership do you need to do your job as well? And so we completely changed it. Crystal, what was the name of it? I don't remember. And we even took inclusion training and added it to leadership development. And now you have a choice, so you don't get voluntold to go to inclusion training. As strongly as that's one of the ones you pick. But it's one of those. I'm going to have Iowa ideas that goes out to the entire community. So I don't know what I said. I hope Kelly's not in here. I am sending an email when I get back. It went out to all of our staff in this area. All of our staff in this area had the opportunity to attend that conference based on our ticket. We did do a conversion system upgrade. System upgrade. So normally that fills up and I have to pull names. And I literally pulled the names. So it's not going to be the people that are the closest to me. It's the names I actually pulled.
I won't be labor, but I'll kind of add, tell a quick story. So really listening to your employees, how you go, because your employees drive your business. Take you back 20 years. I still remember this. I was at UCLA call center, and it's about 60 people, 60 students out. One of the things that I used to hear is, oh, nobody ever listened to us talk to the fundraisers. And so I did something very simple. I just suggested box on the door. I said, I'm new here. I don't know what this is how we're your voice matters. You guys know this. You know this. You know what we need. How can I help you get your job better? You don't have to tell me. So my suggestion box started putting up. I think they thought that I was paying attention to that. And so about we would have a TV, and I would make some change. I don't care what it was, something small, but I would make a change. I would recognize if the person put their name on that suggestion box. Who gave me that suggestion? Because I wanted to give credit to the staff. I wanted to know that our building has shipped together. So one time, about a week after that, there was a suggestion. I can use $1 more dollars for my rent. Okay, so next month comes by. I made a change on some form, somebody credit. Before the meeting ended, I said, hey John, here, I handed $20. My point was, this is us. And I want you to know I'm listening to you. And I'm trying to answer your needs. I'm not able to tell you books every week. But I wanted people to know I was listening to what their suggestions were. And we are going to empower your employees to develop strong. That's really no matter what you do. So that was funny. You got it. I'm buying a beer, but okay. Absolutely. Oh, sure. Yes, sir. And those for
Smiling is having cash. My business is neighborhood Cedar Rapids. I'm a video news service. Sometimes I wonder if the culture that is portrayed publicly is like a steel fist and a velvet glove. That essentially corporate bodies, especially the larger they become, are essentially authoritarian at their core. And that this is manifest very often in the way external communications are handled. That employees are discouraged for example, giving interviews about company practices and so on, and all of these must go to communications director or something like that. Or if someone is not happy on the job all the time, smiling, that kind of get dinged for poor attitude. And when the evaluations come up, and that's taken into account. So the steel fist and velvet glove notion for corporate reality and corporate culture.
Your question is that the reality?
Is that the reality?
Okay. What do you think?
So I'm going to try to answer your question, not understand, but I'm going to try really hard. So what I think that you're asking is, do people walk the walk, or are they just right? So they're just talking about it, or are they actually doing it? And I can give again one of the things that we do as our CEO, at least twice a year, goes to every branch. We have 32 branches throughout the state of Iowa, Nebraska, and every department twice a year to hear from employees. I also, as a person who does the community outreach and does all of our corporate giving, go to the brain, because when I feel like I have to make a decision, and I don't really know the number because I've been too far removed from it, I go to the people who interact in our community, and I will just sit at a branch and tell jokes. That's what I actually ask any person in one of our ranges, what do you enjoy? And they're like, oh, she smiles a lot. I do a lot more than that, but my job is to make that I just smile and hear the voice a lot. I do some of those types where I go around and I take those things back and I use them to inform my decisions. I know I'm not on that front line anymore. I'm a little bit far removed from that. So how do I make sure I'm hearing his voice? I'm hoping that answers your question.
I'll chat to you around. When you recruit, you very much you hear other legal experiences to really have a experience companies and it may not be that brand that we see in our community, whether it's like some experience, and there may be a lot of barriers for that or reasons for that. But I think that that's not happening. And I think that with all the attention of Clture, there's a spectrum of organizations that how they pay attention to that and how they approach it, right? Some are, I'll give you my personal opinion is I think what matters the most is doing it for the reasons that are more intrinsic. Why would you do as a business? And do you care about your people? And do you want your people to be happy and work for you? And then really focus on that, not necessarily, well, we want a brand that is going to recruit and get us more customers. They take the eye off the whole reason for it in the first place. And I think that you mentioned someone who had a maybe a bad day, or they get for it, or something along those lines. I think something I do is that if you can't swing so far, where you're so focused on, are you engaged? Why are you not engaged? Oh my gosh, that was not engaged. Now I'm dramatic. And I have seen that it's like humans are human, and there's a balance in that, and but so yeah, I think you can swing one way or the other, but I hope this answers what you're saying. I think it exists, and I think to really make an impact on your own business, you gotta do it right reasons. And that's really looking at your people first. And then the brand and the recruitment attention, that's a result. That's the actual result that you're trying to get. You gotta go with the knowing your people and caring about them.
I think you make a good point. There's an organization that works locally, that over the last 20 years, $5 million company to $100 million company. And your conversation is interesting because this company's struggling right now. And they're struggling because of their work culture. And the conversation that I hear, because of what I do get to hear about businesses from employees passing through their jobs, right? So I hear some of these things, and this organization is a great company, but as they've grown so fast, they've grown so big that they have taken their eyes off the culture wheel. And they've forgotten about what that family culture. Sometimes they get big, you lose that family culture by acquiring companies, acquiring personality, acquiring policies, procedures, and things become more formalized. So I would encourage any company that acquire a large company. Typically it's the middle managers. Typically it's that middle management section of the organization that controls your culture. CEOs, leaders, folks, they drive the culture. But it's the middle managers that have a ton of hiring and communicating comes in around the space every day. It's that middle leaders that are doing the work. Those are the folks that have to that I believe is not focused on making it improve the culture, but there are absolutely organizations, and I think sometimes it's business growth. They grow too fast, and for lack of better term, they came where they came from. And that happens in businesses like it happens for people personally, to get a little money in your pocket, came from, do that. Same thing with organizations, don't forget, but build the foundation, started with basically what you have or what happened. Now you're at $200 million, get up, forget it. The culture you started is the culture you're going to have. Does that answer your question?
Yes, you are.
My name is Dana. I've been here when I was since '06, so long enough. I used to work for a large company here, and now I'm working on my own business. But one of the questions that I wanted to ask all of you, especially HR, is you said something that kind of made me think about it. The performance ratings that a number of companies do where you allow your employee to rate themselves and their performance, and then the manager or supervisor does it. How much do you think that might actually hurt the employer? Or excuse me, the employee that help them? Because I personally, I have done a rating, and it was between 1 to 5 to rate yourself, and you're always going to find this one thing that you can absolutely awesome, give yourself a 5. And they come back and you're like, no, it's a 3. And then we say, well, how do you get a 5? They say, you can't. And I say, well, what do you mean you can't? You can't get a 5. Why not? I don't know. So how much do you think that might hurt this way?
That's a good question. How many environment where they had not salary above expectations? I'm sorry. I didn't say any words.
So Dana and oh yeah, I've seen all sorts of things, definitions of what a 5 is and what a 4 is, and so, I'm not a typical, I would say I'm not a traditional HR, so, and you're figure out why pretty quick. So I when I was responsible for an HR function, I had an epiphany, and I was starting my employees in my class, and I thought, and I'm leader, okay, and I'm sitting on this. I'm tired of this. You're busy. Like, I would go, well, I don't enjoy this. This is a burden. What the heck is wrong with this picture? And people don't understand it. A 3 or a 4 or whatever number you want to pick is going to mean something different to every single person. And so my short answer is I don't agree with that. And I mean, this is just completely. I think what it is about, that whole process is the relationship. And it's about a chance to focus on employee at that moment. That's the intention. I really going back to my experience, I really looked at it, moment in the mirror, going, what is this whole intention of this process in the first place? It's about to give the employee a moment they're proud of, they feel they've accomplished, and gaps that the leader sees, and have a really good conversation. It's not about it. And clear about the message and what we want the employee to be there as leader. It's not about the number. So in my personal experience, I got rid of the form. I got rid of the process of approvals, because in HR you know that performance reviews on the first thing. Because some managers always say, oh, they say that a month later, I've got to get rid of this. What's going on? And so I went back to this is again, how do you go from good to great? And I'm not saying that I'm sure it's your journey. Always try to find ways to improve. And go back to what is the intention of the process. So that's
Instead of the evaluation, whatever you're calling it,
conversation. So
what I would do is
So
Just take it,
to take a little bit step backwards,
you have to have really
you have to
strong
have strong
leaders
leaders to do this.
And so you're
And so
really
you're
first,
really first,
it's not
exactly ripping the Band-Aid off.
It's making
It's
sure
making
leaders
sure
are
leaders are developed
and
and
understand how to have good conversations
and how to lead and develop
give
good feedback.
And so that's
the first step. That is, the role that I played in the function was,
okay, it's that time of year, we need to have these conversations done by a state.
Because
You know, that
they're rightly,
people get busy. And then those kind of things get pushed to the wayside.
And so this
An
was
accountability partner, if you will. If you gotta do this, you gotta make it a priority. And if you're in the right culture, leaders understand that you're making it a priority. So no forum, it's the time of year, it's the time of year, it's time to do this.
And we're gonna help one, give them one
piece of paper, one sheet
that
had four questions
for both the employee and the employee. That was simply it.
And then to make sure they're happening,
one more thing.
Going back to accountability. Consistency and being accountable to that.
Consistency is key.
We put it on the engagement survey of have you had
for meaningful
conversations with a yes or no.
And then
That's how you know.
Exactly.
I like that rubric. So we had the numbers out, and we changed them to words. So my last performance rating was strong performer, which is not top performer, strong performers of 4, top performers of 5. So we haven't quite arrived yet. We just changed. We're going along this process and kind of spoon change because the numbers don't work. And I'm like, what is this? So we change it to words. We do the one-on-ones, and we give them 3 different boards that you can choose from. The employee chooses which they want to use in their one-on-one. The employee chooses how often you meet. But it's the manager's job to then say, these one-on-ones are your benefits, to make sure that you're developing in the way that you want. And two, they're when I'm going to when it is time for it to be a raise. Or if you're wanting to go into a different department or whatever, one-on-ones are the conversations that I'm going to use for those things. And I think eventually even the words, but we're not there yet. We're not there yet because we have people that are 40 years or all the people I started with are now in middle management, so they've been there for 25, 30 years, and this is how it goes. And so just weaning them off.
But how much do you think it helps us? Does it help or hurt? Because we can take the number out, but the word said you already know the word, which word is a 4 and 5.
I don't know from the whole organization because I don't work in HR, but I can tell you from my employee standpoint, I have an employee that has been at the credit union longer than I have, and I've had an employee who's been there for 1 year who come from a nonprofit organization who never has one-on-ones. So from that aspect of them being able to choose how that one-on-one is, when it does come time for them to say, here's how I was a performer, here's what you're going to be for your performance. It's not a surprise to have that conversation together. I personally don't talk about performance. I don't talk about the strong performer. I don't remember the name of the one is. I don't remember what the words are. I don't talk about those numbers in our one-on-one. I don't talk about those numbers until towards the end, and we agree on the number, and I don't give them a number. I don't give them the word. I don't have them give the word. I'd be like, here's the thing that you've done well. Here's what I've seen that you've done well. Here's what I'd like you to work on. Here's what we say you want to work on. Where in this rubric that we have, do you feel like where is this mostly are you fall decide on that together, and that's what I send off. So for my employees, I feel like it helps them be better leaders because then they also have those conversations with each other about how they're encouraged to have the conversation with each other about it. Does that make sense? Is that helpful? Not helpful? I'm sorry.
If I'm being honest, I would say I've probably never done it before. So whether I had a really rigorous system where I was numbers and do it with all my employees and we never said to, so everybody five, some of these can't do that. Great team. So not before, and then I gotta tell the employee why I had more than four. And it was just dumb. And then here, at the nonprofit, honestly, we just don't do it enough. We don't have rigorous things in place, and one of the things that kind of came out of that employee survey, I'd like a little bit more back on how I'm doing, because we just kind of take it for granted, great job, and sometimes don't even tell them that, or even more important things that maybe they could be doing so better. So doing it pretty bad now too, where I just don't do it at all. So there's that happy medium. It is about the process. The time I did it the best was when I got so fed up with the system, and I was so IT. I told HR, we're not spending $500 a month on this system anymore. We're going to use a word that has four questions, and we're just going to have the conversation. And this was right before we had a huge amount of numbers back to the numbers. But I felt like I was inside that. I sold it, and I saved you a bunch of money. We're not going to use the system that everybody needs anyhow. You're like, yeah. And so we were kind of getting into that right spot because we were just focusing on yearly basis having conversations about what they're really good at. Because if you don't, then obviously you're not in tune with how things really are. So just the process, the communication with them.
Yeah, so that's a great question. I don't like. Remember like high school, it's like pass fail. You pass or fail. So I think if you're having you're either good or you're doing your job or you're right. But I think those are about that relationship. I don't mind when we do sit down. What do you think about yourself? I think that exchange is good. The whole scoring. Because I know many of you have done this. I got so much bucket of budget money to get raises. So I got it. And the rules say you get 4, you get 2% raise, you get a 3% raise. That should be just better. I only got so much money. So I get scored on. I have to justify it. So now you're playing scores and money equals lives over a metric. So I don't like them. But I do think you can hold people accountable, have a record of performance. Here's a specific task area of the business that you need to be better at and improve at. Do we agree on that? Okay. What is improvement? Maybe it is a number, it's a number, but it's that specific skill set. So we're going to talk about that, and I'm not going to score you on that. The question is, are you getting better at that or are you not? So I don't like getting caught up. And I'm in a metrics business, but I don't like getting caught up in numbers. We forget about the humans.
Let me add one quick thing. About a year ago, Liz Martin, our chief photographer, and I went to a workshop in Milwaukee, Minneapolis, someplace with an M. Milwaukee, thank you. But what I do remember from there, in that workshop, is one of the things, the person leading it said, Jill, somebody, one of the things she said to us was, have a regular conversation with the people who report to you and ask them 2 questions. Tell them you're going to do this, and you ask them 2 questions. 1, what do you need more of from me? 2, what do you need less of from me? So I started that with just a couple, 2 reporters who I knew reasonably well. And at first I got these weird looks like, what do you want now? But then after a while, when no, really, what do you need? And I got a lot more of what we need less from you. I got a lot of that. And then I got a good amount after a while of, what I need more feedback on, and what do you think of this? And don't just tell me it's a good story, because I know it's a good story when I give it to you. Tell me why you think it's, what part was good, what part was bad. And it got really better, and I'll tell you, after a while, they weren't waiting for those discussions. I was getting texts, I was getting phone calls on Sunday nights, but it actually worked, and I actually did get it. And some it works better, some just, okay, fine. But some It works sometimes, but it's that regular conversation. It's like checking ADP timesheets. You don't wait till every other week when you know it's due at noon or 9 a.m. or whatever time, because that's never worked well for me. So I always check them throughout the week. Oh, where would I come in on Tuesday? So yeah, sorry. That's my pragmatic answer. Yes, sir, in the back. You are, Quinn is coming.
Thanks, Quinn. My name is Dan Felton. I work for Kirkwood, and I was wondering how culture drives hiring practices and how hiring practices, or new hires drive culture. Kind of a vague question, but throwing it out there.
New hires and the relationship with culture.
So I'm going to change your question just a little bit, because what I hear you saying is fit, right? And in HR world, we've been told to throw fit out the door, because when you say fit, you're already deciding in your head who that person should be that you're coming in. So right, we're just supposed to get rid of fit, and it's really, really hard, because that's a word that we like to use. And so when you're hiring, you're looking for what skills do you need for a particular job. So if you have a job full of people who are go-getters and they want to do and they want to be out doing stuff all the time, but you need somebody that kind of will stay at the desk. Someone who will be there to answer the calls for your department. I mean, what do you really need in hiring? And switching that mindset is really, really hard. And then it will help you develop your culture better when you're not necessarily looking for fit, because you'll be able to meet your mission better. I'm able to serve my members better if we're not all the same. If we're not all cookie cutter and we don't all fit within this culture. But we are meeting our mission by making sure that we have different flavors of cookies.
So I think it's important to define what characters or values are more successful in your business than others. So really keeping it to your point, Angela, the objectivity. So for example, if you're an entrepreneurial type of business versus maybe an educational institution, I mean, there's going to be certain characters or values of an individual that will be more successful than others. And you've got to make the time to define it. And that way you are looking for people who frankly fit, but it's not based on subjective, it's more objective. And really look for that in the hiring process. So, prior lives or organizations I've been in, it's defining, are you passionate about your community? And give me some examples of that, because that was a value, it's an expectation the organization is going to have. And some people it's not that they're not passionate about their community, but it's not going to fill their bucket to go volunteer. And that might be way out of their comfort zone. But in that team, they were going to be forced to do that. So that's just one example. And then new hires absolutely impact your culture, to go to that question. And how you
point, you already make sure you know what skills you need. Make sure you understand the skills that you have. That's probably the easiest part. The hardest part is find out who can perform those skills in this culture that we want to be in. And is your culture defined? Have you, as an organization, defined the type of culture you're going to drive? Because if you don't know, and your organization has not really defined the type of culture you're going to drive, you don't know what you're hiring. You're just filling a spot, filling a body. I used to like to say this with tech positions, and this isn't a knock against any tech positions, but if you think about it, tech positions, and as a recruiter, when I recruited, they were some of the easier jobs to fill, because you either know SQL or you don't, right? You either have these specific technical skills or you don't, right? So that's kind of the easy part to decipher. Now, the question is, how do you apply those skills, but what type of human being are you? And so when you think about your interview questions, when you think about what you're asking, don't just ask questions about the job, ask questions about the person, about the type that speak to your culture. Because you can find those skills that we're not going to fit, they're not going to want them.
I think it's really important to interview, hire that thinking is this culture fit. You're thinking they share the same we do. And you don't know that unless you're asking them questions about your value, asking them questions to give them the opportunity to show the same values that your organization does.
I want to add to that. That doesn't mean they share the same values
As you. Because diversity matters. There's one. You don't want someone can talk like you. But do they show the values of the organization? I don't want to hire a bunch of jerk. So I don't want it. We need people that are nice. So that's important. Sometimes your personal life, your personal life, your work every day, and that affects your decision making. So you have to keep that in mind about what that word really means.
We've had a thing called the salsa test, and I specifically we had a couple reporters who knew well, who would take that candidate out for lunch. And this came about because the first time they went to a Mexican restaurant, and the salsa was taken back to the table, and that candidate took the bowl, scooted over to himself, and took all the chips and batter, and salsa terrible salsa. So from then on, we have somebody come in and take a candidate down to the same restaurant and see how they went on the salsa. They were actually not lately. I heard about them coming to a very loud restaurant. Good 9 o'clock and Sunday. That's a test.
So my thing on the salsa itself is going to be.
Yes. So later, it's going to work. This person work. Can this person work on this? Is this a team player? Is this a team player? What do you think? Because that's what they can talk about. They're going to write it down. And the first thing that came up. You know what he did with the So from then on, sure, but they take everything down to the same restaurant. The one thing did not hog all the salsa. So, you know.
I think you also like water down the culture in the fit, sometimes that make you look like we do in this room. Because when you're talking about your values and your values fit, then I can tell you as someone who might not look like very overly secret or very people in the room. It doesn't look like everybody in this room. My values probably are pretty similar. My mom's German. My values are shaped in those types of things. Pretty similar to yours. How I execute from because my dad is from Arkansas. African American, born in the 30s. Might look a little different. But that doesn't mean that I come with my cookie flavor and make your organization better. So I know that we said that's why I'm so afraid of the word fit. Because it is like I'm gonna eat salsa. I'm gonna eat salsa, but I'm gonna get a separate bowl because I saw my own version of salsa because otherwise I'm not gonna be able to talk to you because I'm gonna be like something. So when you're doing the salsa test, make sure they're not to find someone who is always like you, because you're gonna always get the same result that you're currently getting. And that person who doesn't even though they do have the same values. They do have the same values. So they culture because they into the culture because they don't express that way. They don't express in the same way. So that new employee will stay. So that new employee will.
You can also lose good
Down
talent.
that way, good talent that way. There's a company here, and it was looking for a high-level executive assistant position. Called us because they were interested in diversifying.
Found it amazing.
This is a manufacturing organization. Amazing
From the East Coast, knows the East Coast,
services actually competed with this company.
The female interview for the position.
And the feedback I got was
knows her products.
Knows the
So
products.
good.
so
History
good.
knows our territory.
Knows our
A
territory.
little too assertive.
Little too assertive.
They were just a little too assertive.
They were a
for
little
our
too
team.
assertive
I don't know if they would
for our
gel.
team. I don't know if they would gel with our
So
team.
here you've got an issue.
So here you've got an issue, you're dealing with culture and what, and these values, right? So you've got a female,
male-dominated
a
environment,
male-dominated environment.
being told that
Being
she's not
told
getting a position
that
she's
she's not
really
getting a
good
position
at
that she's really good
because
at.
she's assertive.
Because
And I don't know how many
she's
articles I
assertive.
can
And I don't know how many articles I can show you.
The
read about
conversations around women.
The conversations around women and being assertive in our workplace and leadership role, how it's perceived different
And
than
so
men.
you have to ask yourself,
And
when
so
you think about
you have to ask yourself, when you think about
those are things that matter in your workplace.
Those are things that matter
You
in your
could not
workplace because you
have
can
talent
not
lead
lead
your company. You
have
could
talent
not
lead your company.
get
You
great
could not
talent in your
get
organization.
great talent in your organization because of how you see the
Okay, we're about, okay, we're about last question here. One last question, this is for each of you.
I told you I was gonna ask you this.
I told you I was gonna ask
The
you
question
this.
is,
Okay,
what are we
the question is,
doing that we're
what
not
are we doing that we're not doing in collection? What should we be paying more attention to? Come on, 5 of you. Come on, 5 of you. I told you. What
Say it again, because I'm
What-
Say it
what-
again.
What should we do? We collect more on. What should we pay more attention? What are we not? What should we pay more attention? What are we not doing? What are we not getting right?
I'll hop in first. So,
I'll hop
I
in
think,
first.
so
The common
I
denominator
think
from today,
the
from what
common
I
denominator from today, from what I understand, is
what
listening
I
is
understand
key, and
is
to
listening
Dan's
is
question
key,
to you
and
about,
to Dan's
you know, when
question
you
to
talk
about
about someone, you know, when you onboard someone,
development is huge, but it's not
development is huge, but it's not a
a continuum, it goes on
a
forever.
continuum,
It's a
it goes on
journey.
forever, it's a
You have
journey.
to just stay,
You have to just stay,
right in step with that, to
right in
continue
step
that
with that,
development
to
as we
continue
go.
that development
And
as we go.
For me,
And
I always go back to,
For me,
when
what
I
2
always
years
go back
back
to
to
for a reason.
2 years and
Right.
not for a reason.
That's, we
Right,
have 2
like,
years and.
That we have 2 years, I think everybody should listen more, and I think everybody would be proud.
I think what I've learned from, being able to ask questions, ask enough questions, and how, and give that feedback, or ask for that feedback, and again, just going over those numbers in this way, and seeing that number in this way, that's very compelling to me, to get that job. But I think it also has to be very thoughtful. We can say, we can joke about having an open door policy, so we have open doors, working up there, so we have doors. But, everybody knows they can come to me and tell me, very transparent, tell me very approachable, tell me what they want, but it has to be a little bit more than that. Structured, structured, asking really good questions, if you give them that environment, and that feedback, then we will get that feedback, but it's not enough to just say, hey, anytime you want to chat, I'm always available. That's true, but to actually, infrastructure around it, and give them the opportunity to give the feedback and to be asked the right questions, where they feel comfortable in saying, what they should be saying, I think is also important that we need to be doing better at.
I would just say, we have to allow our employees to be who they are, so we can bring their results to work. Last night I got
I'm gonna continue to bump that up, I mean, that,
But
that's right.
to allow them
But
to be who they
to allow them to be who they are, value at work and value that, I think that we don't do enough of that. I also checking our biases for
Like
or
I'll give an
against something.
example.
Like I'll give an example, I attend a corporate college. I think anybody else who went to an Iowa private college is better than anybody else.
Which is not necessarily true.
Which is not necessarily true, but that is a bias that I know that used to be unconscious, that brought to my consciousness, that I now have to
That's
put
just
in
an
check.
example.
That's just an example that we don't do enough of that, and so then we're not letting people feel welcome or bring their whole selves to work.
Bingo, what she said.
Bingo, what she said.
No, I think it's a community.
No, I think it's a communication
We're not doing
thing, and I think we're not doing enough, I think outside the box, and
There's a gentleman here in town.
There's a gentleman here in town, a well-known executive, I can't, he doesn't know my mentor, but he is.
50, mid-50s, white man.
50, mid-50s,
And we're able to have these conversations.
And we're able to have these
Now, we got to know each other.
conversations now, we got to know each other, and he's able to say this, and he probably wouldn't have said like 10 or 15 years ago,
it's
like,
the 50-year-old.
Anthony, it's the 50-year-old.
What do you think about this? Or
What do you think about this? Or how should I
Maybe 10 or 15 years ago, that might have been.
Maybe 10 or 15 years ago, that might have been an offensive question.
But we have to open our minds and hearts.
But we have to open our minds and hearts and discuss with leaders.
Your leaders can open
If
their
you
minds
can
and hearts.
do, if your leaders can open their minds and hearts and understand that that's going to affect their bottom line, that's going to drive the word trickle. I'm not a big believer in like the word trickle down.
But in some respects, I understand.
But in some respects, I
We really
understand.
need people in positions that
We
make
really need
decisions
people in positions that make decisions
We're not
that
doing
think outside
that.
the box.
And
We're not
I think
doing
there's a
that.
real opportunity.
And I think there's a real
Major
opportunity
change in our
to make a
market.
major change, start our markets, our communities, when we start thinking differently for ourselves.
Well said, everyone.
Well said, everyone.
I echo listening.
I echo listening to your people.
I would reiterate leaders.
I would reiterate leaders. I think leaders can make a break in
And
culture.
lastly, I would say.
And lastly, I would say, don't be afraid to do
Break
new
the mold
things.
on how
Break
we've
the
always
mold
done
on
things.
how we've always
Because
done
we
things.
learn from each other in small
We learn from each other in small communities.
mistakes.
Don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Try
And
to
try to
create something that hasn't been
create
done in the
something
spirit
that
of
hasn't been done
your
in the
business and
spirit
why you're
of
in business.
your business and why you're in business in the first place.
Okay, I want to thank our panel. I want to thank our panel for the round of applause. I want to thank Angie Dudley for allowing us to have the space, for partnering with us. Thanks to Fresh back there. I want to thank Catering back there. I want to thank Morning Parker for being there in the morning so I don't have to stay in. And Kevin Ken and Sharon Keys, you met when you were coming in. October 3 and 4, Iowa Ideas Conference, mostly for Doubletree, but October 28 is our Business Awards. October 29 is our Business Awards. Nominations are closed, but you can still come, we have a couple hundred people, we have a good time outside. It is 71 degrees outside, it seems to operate at the moment. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.